58, right?
Yeah, I'm live.
6:58. We're live.
We are. Yes,
and look, we're not going to be here next week, friends. But thanks for joining us again this week. I was so glad we didn't take the rest of the year off. I kind of thought at the end of last show we were thinking about, well, we're going to go on holiday.
Yeah, well, I knew I wasn't doing it next week.
Well, his schedule's the same. So.
Yeah, but this week definitely. I mean,
it worked out great because I was like really. I mean, if has anyone been paying attention really to what's been going on the past week? I mean, we're going to stay out of the woods with all the the minutia of like the wars,
moral. Yeah. Okay.
But I do want to mention a couple things. Apparently the Israel Hamas war is pretty much the same. The only commentary I will say is from a fascination standpoint. Have you seen any of the news reports, either Fox, they've been on CNN, MSNBC? All the networks, Rocco, have sent in reporters into like these tunnels.
Yeah.
And the network of tunnels under there is unfreaking believable. They say it's 311 miles.
That's a lot.
This isn't just like a dirt mole hole.
Yeah, it's elaborate.
It's elaborate.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Then they smuggle things in from Egypt, and then they also launch attacks with these. But it's like, how long did it take to build this? And then how do you build something underground? It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, the building trades I've never really understood when it comes. Like I always think
how
about
do you do that?
How do they do the pyramids? Like how do they build?
I mean,
how do they do tunnels? Like how does the ground not fall? Like I'm an engineer. Like I have no idea.
Oh, but I have massive claustrophobia. When you see the videos of this stuff,
I would hate that. Like I'm claustrophobic as shit. Like there's no way I want to be anywhere small.
It's like holy.
I had an MRI done once. I'm like, I want to get out of here. Like this is the worst. Like being in that.
Have some trouble because.
Like, I didn't like
even an open MRI. It was
a closed MRI. It was a closed one.
Old school.
It was old school.
You went old school.
I did not like that. Just laying there and hearing clicking every 30 seconds. I'm like, get me out of here before I die.
Oh yeah, they used to have if you're having trouble, they would have a nurse or someone that would be out there. You go, it's okay. It's you. It's just a little bit longer.
Right.
I'm like, you're making it worse. It's like you're not going to give me any time.
Right.
You keep saying it's almost over. It was almost over 20 minutes ago.
Right.
But that tunnel network, and I would encourage anyone who has not seen that, just from a fascination standpoint, it is absolutely, it's just wild. The other thing that I want to say is like, there was a report on today on the Daily Mail, which is Europe's big. Yeah. So I always thought that the Daily Mail was a tabloid style news service, but their photographers all throughout the world have the most incredible, detailed, high resolution photos and videos that just blow Fox and CNN away. I don't know how they have such a deep network of media.
Yeah, that's a good
question.
They
have the best. But they used the phrase today that I guess Putin's ramping up the war, and I guess the other gent, the Ukrainian guy, I keep forgetting
Zelensky.
He's like drafting another 450 to 500,000 people, and they said Putin was throwing meat on the front line and just sacrificing meat, meaning like just human bodies, just throwing them on there and just trying to blunder their way in, no matter how many lives it costs on these 5 fronts he just launched. Jeez. It literally is just they refer to humans as meat. And I wanted to chuckle for a second because it was just so wild, but it was, you sit back and you laugh. Holy crap, man. When it's all said and done, there's gonna be a lot of death. I mean, a lot of death.
I mean, it's unfortunate these things are even happening in the world right now. Like it really is. And it's I just hope for a change come new administration time, or
I would hope too.
The world needs to get better, needs to right itself. I feel like we are just in another dimension sometimes. I'm like, how is all this shit happening at the same time?
Yeah, me too. I also think that it's possible that some of this aggression we're seeing out in the world may not be happening had we had a stronger administration in there, a stronger leadership ourselves on the world stage. And they might be, these evil doers might be taking advantage of our perceived weakness. I know militarily wise, we have the strongest military.
I mean, I think to your point, I think there has been a we haven't been taken as serious as we have in the past. I feel like on the world stage, I feel like we've been infighting as a country. Like I think when you look fractured from the inside, like it makes it easier, I think, for external forces to like not give a shit anymore. Cause like we can't even hold our own shit together. Like we can't even agree as a country, like what's right, what's wrong, like what the borders are. We can't agree on that stuff. Like, so they're just like, yeah, like well, they're not gonna fucking do anything. Like there's no real strong leadership on either side of the aisle right now. Like there's no one that I feel in government, the federal government, that like I would say is a strong leader. I can't really think of one off the top of my head. And so we do look foolish, on the world stage.
We look timid to me.
Yes.
In areas that, forget the political side of the administrations prior administrations in general have had more solid footing.
Yeah.
It has displayed more solid.
100%. I mean, probably since Reagan, right? I mean, I feel like this is the first time in my adult life where not that I feel unsafe, but I'm like, I don't feel like if a major catastrophe happened that our administration would react in the way it needs to react. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that even though I didn't vote for the man, I felt that Bill Clinton was a man of action on the world stage. I also think that I didn't vote for him either. I thought Barack Obama also displayed surprising amount of, I won't say he was a hawk by any stretch of the imagination, but I definitely think without a doubt,
he was poised and had a presence.
He did. And on the world stage, for the most part, when it counted, he was not afraid to quote unquote pull the trigger. And I don't mean that in a hyperbole, but I mean, he was not afraid to take appropriate action when it was necessary. We've not really, for the most part, seen that out of the current president yet. He has kept us out of a major conflict at this point. And
give him credit for that. Absolutely.
1,000,000%.
100%. But I think there's still too much. Like there's too much uncertainty in the world right now. And like, I don't know what's going to happen. And like, I'm usually someone that I feel like I got a good sense of what's going on in the world. I feel like there's just one time in my life I don't have a real good sense of everything that's going on and why it's happening.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would also say that how many folks like yourself, that what you just articulated, are out there that are maybe tuning out.
A lot of people.
The engaged maybe prior, but now are tuning out.
I mean, I'm that person. Like, I know that. I mean, granted, my life is busier, but it's like I have tuned out quite a bit because, again, you don't know what to believe. I don't understand the logic behind some of the things that are happening, and I don't know what the end game is.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. So, talk about logic. Like, here we go. So, the U.S. Custom and Border Patrol are, I'll use the word finally. That's more opinionated for me, but are finally closing the rail bridges to Mexico.
Right in time for the election.
Well, isn't it interesting how that was my next comment?
I didn't even see that. Did not see that, but yes.
I have three little comments about this, and they all say election effort because it's the timing is just fascinating. So we've decided, or someone has decided, and I know it's not Mayorkas, it has to be coming strictly from the Democratic National Committee or headquarters to shut the damn borders because the American people are finally getting fed up. Our democratic American people are finally getting fed up with the crime and the influx of, I guess I call them migrants now. I used to call them illegal aliens because it's just, whatever you're going to call them out, migrants is a huge problem.
Yeah, I mean, it has been a huge problem. And the fact that we're just waking up now. Well, and I had a discussion at lunch today with a friend of mine.
Why do you think that is?
Oh, it's election time. I mean, let's be real. But I also think, I think there's been what I think happened over the past 3 years, and I had this discussion today at lunch with a good friend of mine. We tend to talk politics. We're pretty much on the same side, but have some differing views. But we both made the point that, like, when you start seeing the liberal media attack things that are going on in the administration, it's for one of two reasons, I believe. One, because the election's coming, right? So it's like we've got to either correct course so we know that people want something different, or two, they've realized like how bad it has gotten and they don't want to be on the wrong side of history. because I feel like people, because even look at the Trump situation, right? I follow people. I'm on both sides. I'm friends with people on social media. They're on both sides. I've seen a lot more people that have been left or center left almost come out in support of Trump now because of the reason that they say, if the government can do this to one person like this, none of us are safe, and something has to change.
I think that's a moderate narrative that's changed.
It has, because I think people are realizing, like, this guy's been going through all this shit for what? Like, what did he really do? Like, no one can really articulate it, right? Like the Mar-a-Lago case, they say he overvalued his property. They're trying to say it's worth 18 million. Like, are you shitting me? A house down the street sold for 500 million. That's smaller. So it's like it's complete and utter bullshit. But the Justice Department has been weaponized. And I think there are people on the moderate side, on the left, that are waking up and saying, oh shit, like, we went too far. This has gone too far. We have to correct course. And they may overcorrect by voting Republican in the next election.
Yeah. And I think if you add in, let's say, the less sophisticated Biden voters, and I mean that in not intellectually, less sophisticated in the amount of time or want to put time in.
Sure.
Your one issue voters or your pocketbook voters, which I think talks a lot about a lot of Americans. They're looking around at their own personal lives and their bills and their grocery costs and their gas costs and everything else. And I think they're just seeing that the pinch is real.
Yeah. I mean, the pinch is absolutely real. I mean, just look at how much stuff costs now. Like, I just think of just things I buy on a regular basis, like how much more expensive it is. Like, I look at like Starbucks, right? Like, Ellie and I go every Thursday before school. Like, it's kind of our thing now. I mean, just in this school year, I feel like the prices have went up. Like, to get 2 drinks,
no question,
and something for her to eat, something for me to eat, it's literally between $20 and $25.
I believe it.
Like, every Thursday. Like, that's crazy. And that's the cost of goods have went up. Like, it wasn't like that 4 years ago.
No. I judge it by how often I have to reload in $25 increments my daughters.
Right. I reload it literally every week.
Starbucks card.
Every single week I reload it. I'm like, man. But she's my daughter and I love her and I'll do anything for her. So
of course.
She knows she has me wrapped around her finger.
Of course. I know she does.
Yes.
That's don't they all. 100%. So, it's just fascinating that we are now in election year, and all the trends look to be not leaning in Biden's favor, and all of a sudden now they're going to pay attention to the border.
And we paused interest rates. We might actually start dropping interest rates again. Like, you don't say. Like,
gas. We're pumping more gasoline now domestically than we have in so long. And look what happened: prices fell.
Right.
It's just, I guess maybe the American people are just that we expect. It's election season.
Yeah, but if that is the case, then that's just that's a sad state of affairs.
Oh, without question.
If we expect that this is just a manipulation of the markets and manipulation of everything else, like, that's just bullshit.
Well, it yields into what's very prevalent the past 6-7 years: the idea of a conspiracy. It feeds that bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of conspiracies out there.
No question.
Some of them I feel like, are they conspiracies or are they just facts that haven't been proven yet?
Since you brought up the word conspiracy,
love it.
Let's talk about COVID.
Okay.
COVID.
What is that?
COVID has returned.
It has? Really?
It has. A new variant, surprisingly.
Why?
So we even have a school district in Western Pennsylvania, Charleroi, who they got them going virtual for a week or so. It made national news today.
I didn't even see that. Are you kidding me?
No, it might. There may be a specific outbreak of the flu or something there that really has hurt attendance. So maybe they figure if they go virtual till Christmas and there's a Christmas break, maybe they won't bring them back until January. Maybe it tactically might make sense if that's all it is. But again, it sends a hell of a signal to the public, right? What I want to let me read this to you. You'll find this interesting to maybe prove the point that this might be election related. So far this year, and I use when we talk about deaths, we have two things I want to state first. Number one, I am not making light of one death, but I'm talking about statistics, and I'm also talking about reality. So we need to talk about statistics. So it might sound callous. We're not callous people. We're just having a discussion.
Sure.
All right. And I also, the second part of that is I realized this is the CDC giving these numbers, and how we quantify a COVID-related death is up for much debate since this has been going on.
Right.
But let's use their numbers. There has only been 67,200 deaths so far this year.
Okay.
Last year, they told us there was 246,000 plus deaths. And in 2021, there was 463,000.
These are just COVID deaths?
I say it doesn't. But what I'm saying is look at the disparity there.
Right.
In 2000, we didn't hear a lot about COVID at all last year.
No.
And it had started to really kind of wind down toward the end of 2021, I think, but there was a lot. But especially last year, we didn't hear, and there was according to the CDC, there was 246,000 deaths.
Yeah.
As opposed to 67 this year. Yet now there's all this COVID information. Does that not just scream?
Yeah, no one's going to buy
election mode.
100%. No one's going to buy it. I mean, I've had this discussion with many people over the past probably 2 months, just people in past, people I'm friends with that fell on both sides of the issue. Not one of those people was like, I'm not fucking doing it again. Like, because again, like I've said 1,000 times, if they were just truthful with us, I think it's like they called wolf too many times, and now they're going to try it again. We're like, no, it's not happening, because people aren't going to put up with it, because it was such bullshit. And when we think back about, like, we were just talking about this at my house on Sunday. Well, the dance moms were, they were talking about like the year of in 2020, they did the Nutcracker with no audience and in masks on stage. Like they just recorded it. But it's like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, seriously, what the fuck? And like the fact that we still, like, when I hear now, like, oh, I have COVID, I'm like, who still gets a test for COVID? Like, who still goes and gets tests? Like, if I have a sniffle, like I have a cold. Like, I feel like anyone, and now, like, I've heard people say, like, I have, I'm stuffed up, I have COVID. I'm like, how do you know? Did you take a test? They're like, oh yeah, I have home tests. I'm like, why do we care at this point in time? Like, why do we care? You have a cold.
Well, you think that's also symptomatic of a good portion of the population too. They're just very emotionally weak as they maneuver, and there's a level of quote unquote fear out there as they maneuver their day.
Well, I also think, and this is kind of something I just thought about recently, I said, I think people have an emotional attachment to COVID. Because if they say they have COVID, it is an excuse for them to be a certain way, act a certain way, not do, because if you have a cold, it's like, suck it up, you have a cold, right? If you say I have COVID, it's like, oh, stay home, like, don't come near me, like, because that's where your mind goes. Like, think about that, right? Like, if I called you today and said I have a little bit of cold, you wouldn't have gave a fuck. If I called you and said, hey, Eric, I got COVID, you'd say, let's cancel the show, probably. I mean, just not
give you the option.
Correct. Like, but that's just where your mind goes. Like, that's mind will go the same place, right?
I get it.
So I think a lot of people, like, they'll just test to get, because it gives them,
it's a social currency.
It's a social currency, and it gives them an out in certain instances. Like, hey, if there's something I don't want to do, I got COVID. I don't want to go to this party. Got COVID.
But our government's responsible for conditioning a portion.
Correct.
Of the
like it was conditioned. We were conditioned that way. Yes, absolutely right.
So yeah, it's another little election coincident. Coincidink, as we used to say in grade school.
Quinkydink.
Quinkydink. That's it. Yeah, quinkydink.
I'll be the words for you.
Fair enough. You're always the wordsmith. I found this kind of rather a little salacious, but I'm just dying for it to happen. And I have been for a long time. Apparently, Judge Loretta Presko ordered that there is an unsealing of, which I believe to be a north of 170 of Jeffrey Epstein's high-profile associates. And this is going to happen right after the first of the year.
It's going to be interesting.
And I'm wondering if this is also related to elections. Is there enough... Just let me play it out.
Okay.
Could there be enough potential Democratic voters out there that are just god awfully sick that this person has got gotten away, or his group of bandits has gotten away with being held accountable for the network of pedophilia and garbage that this guy was involved with. And now this is a play toward them. Oh, we're going to get on top of this and release this in the election year.
So I tend to think a lot of this stuff like that, like the fact that Hunter Biden's charges, and I think it's a way to set the stage to get Biden out. So I don't think the Democrats want to put him up for re-election. Like he'll get slaughtered by any Republican unless they somehow manipulate things, because he's not coherent. So I think if you put the Hunter Biden, like all those charges, he's major charges against him now that the liberal media is now talking about. It makes it very easy for Biden to say, you know what, I'm not going to rerun. I'm not going to run for re-election. I'm going to spend time with my family. I'm going to pardon my son as my last act as president. Like that's what I could see happening.
He would do that.
I fucking absolutely, 100%.
Fascinating.
That's kind of how I see it setting up.
Boy, that'd be something.
Mark my words, man. It doesn't, because you cannot legitimately tell me that they would, with good conscience and a good head on their shoulders, run him again. He's 80 some years old and he can't put a sentence together now.
Well, I definitely don't think that the good conscience option is even irrelevant with this current administration, or any administration for that matter. I think they would do it if they saw a means to the end. They'd do it. But I think they don't see a means to the end because they don't have a strong person to replace him if he gets elected and passes away or becomes mentally checked out. So they can't go that option. They can't remove the current vice president because of the political consequences from many different demographics in their base. They're kind of stuck there.
I bet you Newsom gets the call up.
I just would love.
I don't like him.
I would love to see. I'm not a fan either, but I'd love to see the transition that party would have to make, and how their base would have to swallow that.
It would be an artistic move.
It would be something. It would take beyond it. Yes, it would be more than an artistic move. It would be actually a fucking miracle.
It would be interesting to see how it played. Like if they were able to pull that off and not lose support of the base, like I'd give them fucking credit. Like how to talk to and manipulate people.
I just can't see that happening. But again,
I don't know. We'll see.
They might also be thinking, and I can't tell you, I can articulate why they have this confidence, exactly. But they might think, based upon the prior results, that we won by such a large margin. We have such a large voting advantage. For whatever reason. I don't know, legitimate or illegitimate. I'm not the arbitrator of what happened there, but they apparently had this massive voting advantage. They can weather losing a chunk of that.
But here's the thing, though. This is
in their mind,
right? But here's what they're not calculating. This is what my buddy said today, and I thought was a really brilliant observation. He said, if you look at the last elections, he got 80 million votes. I don't know the exact number. 10 million of those votes were for Biden. 70 million of those votes were against Trump, right? So now a lot of those 70 million people have said, don't like what they're doing to Trump. I would vote for Trump if he ran again. So I think part of that 70, the Democrats have lost because they've overreached on a lot of this shit. They went too far. So I think those people that were kind of, like I said earlier, moderately left, that voted against Trump, not necessarily for Biden, against Trump, I think they'd vote Republican this time.
It'd be something to see.
It's going to be an interesting shakeout of how this all unwinds.
I have a good swath of friends who are absolutely convinced that where he's going to get indicted is going to be in Atlanta, in Georgia. There, they think that this prosecutor and the demographic of the area, the heavy Democrat demographic of the area, is going to weigh the court system, and indeed he's going to. You got
to have a legal basis, man. You got to have a.
I would hope you would have to have a legal basis in this country to get.
Well, look at the shit that's happening, man. I mean,
I would hope
you would. Yeah, I mean, I'm a lawyer. I would hope the fucking legal system works.
I am fascinated about this list with Epstein. I mean, we have been waiting as citizens,
correct?
Because these are insidious crimes that have been floated around there.
Yep, absolutely.
I don't think it's been involved. Obviously, there was. Was he ever indicted?
He was in prison. He died in prison.
But was he indicted? was he in prison because they were holding him because of an indictment?
I can't remember. I think I want to say he was going on trial. Like he was being held till trial.
And is it Ghislaine? Is that the Maxwell?
Just I don't know how to fucking say it. Yeah.
know.
G Maxwell, we'll call her.
Okay, G Maxwell. Like she's supposed to have all this information, a little book and all this nonsense and stuff. But we're going on years now, and just like it just keeps plodding along.
They're just hoping people forget about it,
and it just nothing happens.
It'll be interesting to see the list. My concern is they say they're going to release 170 high profile. It's going to be 170 high profile people. We have no idea who the fuck they are.
Not famous people.
Not famous people. Like CEOs of like companies that we don't necessarily know.
Although there was a couple photographs released recently. Did you happen to see that?
No.
Bill Gates was in one.
Yeah, I mean,
Woody Allen was in.
Yeah, I mean, he was on his plane. I mean, that's been known. And that's the thing, like they all try and talk about it. Oh no, it was just business dealings. Really?
All he had is they both had their arms around a proven underage woman, which is,
disgusting.
Again, you can't convict off of that,
right?
But it sure goes against their narrative,
right?
It's like
people just want to know what happened. Like,
well, what's wrong with that?
Right? Exactly.
We have a right to know.
Correct. I agree. Yes,
as an American citizen.
Yes. Absolutely. You spent our tax dollars to put this guy away and to pursue this dude. Like we have the right to know.
It's like, it really isn't any different than if the guy down the street was arrested for doing the same thing. You'd want to know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, absolutely right.
And if people that are in the news and are quote unquote celebrities, in whatever that means in 2023, are the ones implicated in this, we'd want to know.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah, I think that's just, I don't know. I think it's natural. So there was a really interesting article I noticed. And again, I don't know how I ended up on the Harvard Business Review or this next one, because I really do not like this publication. Not because of political slant, but because of the hatchet jobs they try to go out with, poor reporting and everything else. And that's Business Insider.
Yeah.
There's been hit pieces on Portnoy. And
yeah,
a lot
of bullshit.
It's more tabloidish, but it's also just they have an agenda. But I found an article I thought was interesting, and it was written by Madison Hall. I looked into her a little bit, and she's basically just a data reporter. She apparently looks at companies that compile polls, all the major polls, and then they compile that data. And then this, I was impressed by the article. I would encourage anyone to look at it. It's the name of the article is Biden Needs to Get Popular Again, Quick or Get Out. Madison Hall, a Business Insider data reporter. The gist of it was there's a website called 538, and they are a website that does compile major polling and looks at it historically. And I will read this. It's pretty eye-opening. Using 538's catalog of American support for past presidents, at 1,063 days into their presidencies, Biden has the lowest average approval rating of any president since Harry fucking Truman in 1945. Wow. That crosses all political parties, all candidates, all periods in time. Yeah. And the numbers were generally like 30, which I thought was optimistic because it's gone lower, 38%.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty clear.
No president
get popular or get out. Like he's not going to get popular. Like he's beyond that point.
I don't see the pathway. I mean,
there's no pathway.
Gas prices go down, or Bidenomics somehow gets a better reputation overnight, or
I think it's a lost cause for him to try and get popular. He's going to have to get out.
I also don't see any quick wins on the geopolitical front. Like if there was if we've been being annoyed apparently by the Houthis, I think, in the Red Sea. We've been annoyed with drones and things, and we're selectively deciding to retaliate. And we're trying to get our allies in the region supposedly to get together so we have a unified response. But we've been kind of sitting on our hands, and maybe there's a great reason for that. But what I'm saying is there isn't any identifiable geopolitical win that we could go score quickly. Yeah. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, to help him politically.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, you're right.
Because that shit's been tried before in the past.
There's no shot. That's why I said he has to get out. He's not going to rerun. I can't imagine it. It would be suicide for them. It would be. There's no way.
Well, I could agree with you too. Like I just don't know what the
alternative is, but I can't. I can't see him.
So fascinating though.
Can't see him doing
how
it,
it's
dude.
gonna. Yeah, it's like it's setting. This year is setting up politically to be extremely
fucking wild. It's gonna be
fascinating.
fucking wild, dude. It's gonna be wild.
I hope the world calms down a little bit. If the world calms down, then I hope it can get as wild as our politics can get as wild as possible. I don't care, as long as the world's calmed down. If the world's still crazy on fire and our political system, then we're exposed as a country.
You gotta find your calm. I mean, I think you're right. As a country, it's gonna depend on the new administration that comes in. Like, we need strong leadership from either party. They can come in and say, America first. Don't fuck with us. Like, don't like fuck around and find out. Like, we need to get back to that as America. I think we can have differences and we can have differing opinions, and we don't have to hate each other because we have different viewpoints, which we need to get past that too. Like, we need to get back to just regular sensibilities, like where we can laugh at things. We can not take everything as offensive. It's just a joke. Like, we need to get back to that and just like grow up
100%.
And not be offended by everything and not be upset by everything. It's like, if you're upset by someone's words, you're egocentric. Like, if you think the words were about you,
there's no question.
Like, that's what people don't get. It's like, if you're upset because of something I said, you think I was saying it about you. I might have been saying shit about you, but you're very egocentric.
Lack of humility.
Right. Like, it's frustrating because I feel like life is so easy to navigate when you're just a positive person. You look for the best in people. You disregard the negative, and you just move forward. And look, you're going to have bumps in the road. You're going to have challenges, but you just keep persevering, and then life gets really easy. It's uncomplicated.
I couldn't agree more. So, for our open discussion here tonight, I wanted to basically open it up to you with the question, how do we fix our political system? And then I sat back for a second and contemplated. Then I started digging in a little bit. I ended back at the Harvard Business Review.
Okay.
I mean, it's like you would think I've gone to Harvard this past week. But I mean, I was always there. Then I realized that it's such a fascinating question for those that you think will have an interest in responding, because it's, I don't think a lot of people want to take on that question because it's either they don't have a clear understanding of things they would want to do, or it's just the amount of time required to vet it out is, we all have like bullet points. Oh, well, they should term limits or okay. Term limits, as Rocco shared prior, is probably number one for both of us.
Number one on my list.
Yeah. But I did want to recommend to everyone here tonight this article. I really want to recommend this article to you. It's the Harvard Business Review from August of 2020 by Catherine Gell and Michael Porter. I think it's very well written. There's a lot of information in there, but I'm going to read you the last paragraph.
Okay.
I want to read this because I think it rings true, at least to me it does. There's no greater threat to American economic competitiveness and social progress, no greater threat to the combination of free market economies and liberal democracies that has been delivered more human advancements than any other system than our passive acceptance of the failed political system. Business leaders would not tolerate such performance in their organizations.
No.
Rather, they would diagnose the problem, design a solution, take action, and fix it. Business leaders, right alongside other citizens, can and must do the same for our politics now. Now, again, this was written in the middle of our pandemic, at the beginning, but like when it was really bad. There might have been some motivation that went into all this, but it doesn't change the concept that a successful organization would never let the organization run the way we as citizens permit our politicians to run.
No.
CEOs, if the president is the CEO of the country, I mean, it's good, different kind of, comparison. But if he was the CEO of the country and your board of directors, let's say, were the Senate, and then you had, your upper management was the House of Representatives. No corporation would tolerate incompetence, willful spending and waste of money, running at a crazy deficit, lackluster hours put in, business hours that are just beyond banking hours,
Mhm.
Paying like $9,000 for a hammer.
Mhm.
No business would run this way.
Okay.
Yet we are okay as citizens, and you can make the argument we're not okay, we're angry. No, we're
Yeah.
not. We permit this to happen.
Okay, but let me challenge you on that, because I agree, but you can't compare it to a business, right? Like you
Not
can't,
directly,
right? Because
no.
I think about like a business, right? Who appoints the CEO? Small board of directors.
Mhm.
CEO hires other people, right? So here, the politicians are appointed by us, who all have differing views, who are all from different areas, who all appoint people that represent this small portion of us, right?
Mhm.
So now you have, how many, you have 100 seats in the Senate, right? And so you have 2 for each state. So each state appoints 2 senators. Then you have all the House of 400 something in the House of Representatives representing smaller pieces. So who is the ultimate decision maker? Like if someone's not performing, what do we do? You got to get the whole population to outvote that person. How do you change everybody's mind? Like you can't. Some people are just never going to change their mind. Some people are going to be staunch Republicans, staunch Democrats, no matter what the fuck the person in office is doing. If they're on their team, they're going to vote for them because it's better than the alternative in their mind. So it's a broken system, right? And that's why I have a little bit of a problem with this, because you can't compare it to business, because it's not an apples to apples comparison. Like you have to look at the system as it's a constitutional republic. You have to look at how that system works, and it's not you can't compare it to business. Like you have to, I think truly, like said it, but term limits are one of the biggest and easiest ways to solve it. Then you get new ideas, and people don't become career politicians. Because what I think happens when people become career politicians, they are very good at pointing out the problems of the system, but don't want to change the system because it impacts their livelihood. They become part of the system. So they complain about the system to get the votes to stay in the system that they're not going to change, but only complain about. That's the perpetual cycle. You eliminate that by putting in term limits. You have 2 terms, right? 2 terms. And maybe if people want to go to 2 terms, you take a term off. If you get revoted in, you can come back for 2 more terms. Like 2 on, 1 off. You want to do that? Make it more than just 2 terms, except for the president. But anything else, 2 terms, 1 off. If you get reelected, 2 again.
Or do 2 terms, and then you could go run for a different seat. You can move like this. If you have 2 consecutive terms in the House of Representatives, and then you decide to run for Senate, that's permissible.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I agree with that. But I think we need to get fresh blood in there. Like that's the point. You have people that are in their 80s, like
100%,
have been there for fucking their entire career, but have tens of millions of dollars off a politician's salary. Like, do the math. Where's that money come from? Like, decisions are not being made in the best interest of the people. It's being made in the best interest of the corporations that are funding the politicians' pockets.
Well, it's also how politicians get. It's the mechanism for them to get wealthy. It's not their pensions. Pensions for life are wonderful, but that's not where not where the real cunning ones are making their long-term money.
And the problem is, like, and let's be honest, right? Like, we could both sit here and say we would go in with good ideologies, but we can get corrupted just as easy.
Of course.
Like, think about, like, people can get corrupted very easily. You throw some money in front of people, life-changing money that now, like, has never had that can easily corrupt a person. So yeah, you can fault the politician, but you also fault the system. Like, the system's just broken.
100%.
And I think we need to look at that. And I don't know how to solve it. I think term limits is one of the easiest solutions to at least start affecting change.
It also would rotate not only fresh blood, but new ideas and new thinking. And it would also, I would hope that I honestly believe, and I said this years ago, and I still feel this way. I do think that if we had that mechanism in place, it would encourage successful business people like yourself.
Yeah.
Let's just say 10 years go by and your firm is I can't imagine we're going to be in 10 years, but at that point, you are in a position personally and financially to say, you know what, I'm going to go serve for 4 years.
Right. Yeah.
I think it'd be fun. I think I might be to get some things. I can lend my knowledge, and it would be another life experience.
Yeah. Right.
But after 4 years, I only kind of want to do it for one term, and then I'll go back into the private sector.
Yep.
I think that would encourage people from business to do a patriotic thing. It may actually encourage patriotism.
I think it absolutely was. I also think it would encourage people to actually understand the will of the people. Because what happens is when people just get elected, it's easy to get reelected, right? So they don't really have to go out and figure out what's happening on the ground, right? They can just sit in their ivory tower and just keep getting reelected. But if you know you're out after 2 terms, and you have to rerun, then you're out talking to the people, understanding what the true issues are, what's really facing American families, and not just what the system tells you is facing American families or what your political machine behind you is telling you. It would force more politicians to have a bigger depth of a ground game, and they would actually know what's going on in this country. Because that's what I think, they become disconnected, right? If you're in the House of Representatives for 20 years, right? That's how many terms? 10 terms. Like, how many times have you went out to the people and actually shook hands? Probably not many. You just keep getting reelected because there's no competitors. There's no one coming to challenge you. But if you know you've got 2 years, then you got to rerun, I think you're going to be a lot more engaged with the people to make sure you know what's going on.
What's your thoughts on hard or more hard requirements? I don't mean more. I don't mean in terms of difficult. I'm using the word hard is like these are finite requirements.
How about a fucking
absolutes.
IQ test? That'd be cool.
I mean, like, who wouldn't want that? But in reality, though, is it a stretch to require a high school diploma? Is it a stretch to require a 4-year degree from an accredited school? Or
well, so we can. So
I don't know.
So this is kind of, but to me, those are not indicative of success, right? So I think I know many successful people that don't have a college degree, don't have a high school degree, that are super successful.
But I'm not looking for. I personally am not looking for it to be indicative of success. I think it's indicative of accomplishment.
But why does accomplishment qualify you to be a politician?
I'm saying well,
because that's what I think. I don't think
it's more of a qualification than someone who has done very little, but has positioned themselves in a local area to win. And I understand the idea that it's chosen by the people, but I find it so fascinating. And I found this fascinating when I was in local politics for 2 terms, 8 years down here in Coriopolis in the early 90s. Yeah, in the early 90s. That I would look around and I would look at the people I was serving with.
Okay.
All fine people, but different backgrounds. Some had not graduated high school. There was a gentleman down there that could not read or write.
Well, I mean, like that's a basic requirement, reading and writing.
But it wasn't.
Okay.
So what I'm saying to you is, and we were voting on sometimes some complex matters where the solicitor would try to bring us in a room and explain that, to the group what they're voting on. But oftentimes the votes were done blindly, and I was assured that from those people that they did not understand what they were voting on, but they like this person or like this person. And I think that's symptomatic of the way our system is done. We have people making decisions on other people for government jobs, for vendors and so forth that may not have the aptitude to understand the matters they're actually voting on, which makes them no better than a lot of the actual voters.
But the problem is, like, where do you draw the line? I know plenty of intelligent people that have no degrees, never graduated high school, never graduated college, that truly have become very successful. I would vote for them over anybody with a Harvard degree.
I get it.
So it's really hard to put a line in the sand.
100%. Maybe college is the wrong hard line, but I just feel like there's got to be, if you're going to elect
how about
US
basic knowledge of
senator,
the U.S. government, of
US
how
history.
the system works?
How about history, for that matter?
Maybe not even history, just the legislative process and what are the 3 branches of the government? How do they work together? What's the Constitution about? Like, how are we founded? Like, maybe some basic, the citizenship test. Like, if you run for politics, you should be able to pass the citizenship test. I think that should be the bar.
I feel like, from a maybe superficial standpoint, that we have people that, through them getting elected in this popularity contest in their certain district or state, not so much senators per se, but representatives for sure, they could get in there, which would be the equivalent of getting promoted to your level of incompetence. They are being promoted through the election of this seat into a venue and asked to do things that they may not have the aptitude to do.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. I just think it's hard to put into practice because there's really not a line to draw. Like, how do you draw a line?
I
Like,
know. I wish it would clear cut.
It's not clear cut, and you don't want to cut people off because some of the best candidates may not fit the qualities, right? You would think that the people are at least smart enough to know, hey, if this person is dead inside and really doesn't.
Did you see the Senate election in Pennsylvania?
Well, right, but that's a whole different. Like, again, the problem there, I don't think that was a vote for him. It was a vote against someone else.
But the results are the same.
Well, I understand that, but I think, again, like, we need to get back to, and I think it comes back to how we are in America. We are so toxic right now as a society. So instead of voting for the best candidate, we're voting against candidates. And that just shows how toxic we are as a society.
Mhm.
We'd rather put somebody in place to get somebody out as opposed to looking for who the best candidate is.
That's a great point.
And I think that's the problem. So we have to get back to just basic sensibilities of kindness and decency and empathy and differing opinions and being okay with that. If we can get back to that as a country, a lot of these problems may solve themselves. Like, when you think about it, it's like, if we could get back to a point in time where I don't get offended by people saying something stupid. It's just funny, or I don't find it funny and I move on. Like, we've got to, and being okay with differences, being okay. If you want to believe you're whatever, that's fine. Just don't force it on me. We can coexist. It's no problem. But now we're looking for reasons to be offended. We're looking for reasons to be a victim as a society, because we don't want to take accountability for our own status, for our own spot in life. We don't want to take accountability for that. So the people that don't want to take accountability want to be the victim. It's not my fault I'm here. I'm treated poorly. I'm treated badly. This person offended me. I could be there, but I've been the victim my whole life. Like, if you're going to play the victim mentality, you're never going to be successful in life. Like, and people need to get back to, like, taking accountability and responsibility for their actions, their feelings, their emotions. And then I think we can move the country forward.
Who do you think that fell off? Like, was there a turning point, or was it a gradual?
It was gradual, and I think it was gradual. And then I think once we started getting on the social media platforms, because it gave people an outlet to be the victim and to offend. So it was easy to offend people on social because you could do it behind a keyboard. Like, fuck you, you piece of shit. Like, you're not gonna say it to my face, but you can say it. Like, there's been videos I've done where I've gotten people have sent nasty comments on. I'm like, you would never say this to me to my face. So you can be. I'm like,
I can guarantee you wouldn't say it to his face.
And it's just, but like, people do that, and then it allows also other people to be like, I'm the victim. But it's like, I think the rise of social media has definitely created more of a victimhood in this country, because it's easy to be a victim.
Yes,
and that's the problem. It's like,
but you also argue, though, what also helped that was our government during these past 6 or 7 years through the pandemic.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, yes, absolutely. I mean, the government definitely played into that. I mean, and it's like, if you look back at just the shit we did during the pandemic, it was completely and utterly ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And people would not take responsibility for their own health. It was like, you'd see people complaining about people not wearing masks.
Nothing's changed.
And they were like, just completely overweight and not taking care of themselves. But it was my fault that you felt afraid. It's like, it's not my fault that you've taken poor care of your health. Like, I'm sorry you're where you are, but take responsibility for where you are. And that's the problem. The government just said, nope, here's some money, stay at home. You can be the victim. And people just became that way. And it perpetuated. And it's made it it's got us to the point where we are today. And it's scary because I want to see it correct. I don't know how to do it, though.
Yeah, social media is it's not the catch. I think we use it as a catch-all blame.
Sure.
I think it's way more complex than that.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
It's as you always say, it's a tool, or it's a collection. It's a tool bag.
Mm-hmm.
Social media, if you label it as social media, it's a tool bag.
Correct.
And in there,
mm-hmm.
are different apps and different ways and to communicate with each other in varying degrees. Sometimes it's one-on-one. Sometimes it's you against the world.
Yep.
The problem is the word against is a part of that lexicon in there. It should never be against. You should be participating in discussion.
Right. That's exactly that's how we could use social media to better society. Having discussions to solve problems. problems. Instead of pointing the blame and fighting with one another and being the victim and being the offender, let's just have a discussion. Let's see if we can sort of shit out. Maybe we'll agree to disagree. Maybe we'll agree on a solution, but at least let's have a discussion. And people are afraid to do that.
How many times in your life have you sat down with someone that for this particular issue you happen to be speaking with, wherever it came from, you realized, wow, this person's got a view that, I don't dig this. But the longer you sit in there, you still in the end may on the premise don't agree, but their conversation with you was civil.
Yeah.
They somewhat had their reasoning together. You can understand why they believe what they said. It felt like they believed, there was conviction there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you leave that conversation with like, I got a new respect for that person.
Yes.
I don't agree on these couple of issues we talked about, but man, he mentioned this and I'm right there with him on that.
Yeah.
That's the good stuff. And we've somehow lost that. Cause I think that was very common in life, 2005 prior.
Okay.
You know, in the early age of the internet, I think it was kind of when there's message boards and AOL chat, but definitely before the internet, we were actually forced to maybe communicate more like that because there was more physical communication. But now it's like the word against is in that tool bag and that needs to be taken out.
Yeah. I think again, like you can have those discussions online through social media. I think
Certainly. People do.
People do, but for the most part, I feel like people utilize social media for the quick hits, like the quick attacks, the quick staves. They don't have these long.
They're trying to one up each other.
Yeah, it's really about that. But to your point, like I've had conversations like that, and I love those because it's like it expands my viewpoint of the world.
On this show, we've done it.
Correct. Like I'm like I may have never thought. I may not agree with you, but that's an interesting perspective. Like I didn't believe in UFOs. Now I'm like I feel like one's gonna come down today. Like, but I mean, it changed my perspective. Right? I mean, when you think about it, though, like I was a person like that's bullshit. I had an open mind. I listened. I'm like, okay.
Well, let me look into that. Gave you some time to do that.
Well, right. Yes. I mean, but I'm saying like, but I feel like that's how we can change the world for the better. If people remain open-minded, like there are certain convictions I have and certain ethics and morals I have that I hold tight, but I'm also, like I've always said, I believe in moral relativism. Like things change over time. So you have to be flexible in your viewpoints and you have to be willing to listen to other perspectives because you only see it. Like I only see this room from my perspective. You see it from your perspective. Like if I didn't listen to you, I would think there was nothing behind me. Right. But from your viewpoint, you can tell me all the wonderful things that are behind my viewpoint right now. If I wasn't willing to listen to you, I would just think it's a fucking blank wall.
Right.
And that's how we look at the world, right? We have people that only want to see it from my perspective when you may have a completely different perspective that opens my eyes. But if I'm not willing to listen and engage, I'll never know.
Yeah, we really don't seem to take enough interest in the realities of other people.
Yeah. And it's not even the reality, it's the perceptions of other people, right?
Or the perception of our shared reality.
Yeah, because we all have a subjective reality of the world, right? So it's like, I think if we could get to a point where we are willing to listen to someone else's perspective or perception of reality, I think it would open our viewpoint. Like to me, like, again, like listening to you, listening to shows with the aliens and the physics and like the quantum physics, it's like, 3 years ago, I'd be like, this is fucking horseshit.
Bananas.
Like, bananas. Like crazy fucking banana. In fact, I just said that word. Like my assistant says that word all the time. And like I try and not say it. So I just said bananas. So but now like my viewpoint was open. So I'm like, okay, like I look at it, I'm like, this is a plausible thing. Like I don't know if it's real or not, but I don't have that viewpoint like this is bullshit. I'm like, okay, I understand the logic. I can see some of these things may make sense.
Like time is static, like moving through a loaf of bread.
Oh, that's a whole different world. Dude. Like, I'm just trying to move into 2024. Yeah,
I have. I mean, I had a good week in general since our last filming, and I've done I did more reading.
Yeah.
Outside of books and things, but just more essays online. I will tell you, I know it's really easy to slam Harvard now online. I get it, but put all that bullshit aside. The Harvard Business Review is not difficult to understand. Hell, if I can read it and make sense of it, I'm surprised at the quality of writing there. I shouldn't be surprised, but I mean, I was surprised it was the way it's laid out, I feel
Mhm.
it's written in a way that the average person who shows a little bit of interest in a subject can find
Mhm.
relative opinion on there.
Yeah.
Well written.
Yeah, I mean,
You might
they're well written.
disagree with them,
They're
but
well written
I
articles.
want that, right?
Yeah,
No one wants to
absolutely.
live in a vacuum chamber.
No, and I think if you want to live in a vacuum chamber, you're never going to see life the way it is, right? Like it's life.
Is it just because it's comfortable people do it?
People, I mean, human nature is to seek comfort. I mean, think about it, right? Like we always seek comfort. Like our natural instinct is to seek comfort, right? When your alarm goes off in the morning, you want to just lay in bed. You want to stay comfortable. But like I always say, you've got to do hard things to have an easy life. You
Mhm.
do easy things, you have a hard life. Like that's truly what it's about. And I've learned that more and more over the years. Though the harder things I engage in, conversations, things in general, the easier life gets. Like that's like if I look back, like if I take, we're at the last show of the year, if I look at 2024 or 2023 and say, what is one of the lessons I've learned this year? That I've got to be willing to have the hard conversations. A lot of them I didn't have this year. Like looking back on just business and life in general, like I've got to be willing in every instance to have the hard conversations.
How about having this hard conversation with yourself?
Oh, that's where it starts, right? Like I had that's the first conversation I had with myself when I looked back at just this year and just speaking transparently about the business and where we are and where we could have been had I have done things differently. I'm still very grateful for where we're going to end up on the year, and we've had a great year.
It's been a pleasure to watch it.
I appreciate that, but I did have that hard conversation with myself. I look back, I'm like, dude, like you fucked up. Like you didn't do certain things. You didn't pay attention to certain things. You didn't have the hard conversations you should have had a long time ago. And it just shifted my perspective. I'm like, okay, like I know the hard things I need to do. I know the hard things I've always been willing to do. I've got to add this one to the list to make changes. And that was like my biggest takeaway from this year is having that hard conversation with myself first, and then be willing to have it with others.
Yeah. That's an interesting question. I was not honest with myself multiple times this year.
Okay.
I mean, honest. I was telling myself bullshit lines on at least 3 major things that I could have woken up, paid more attention to. It really would have opened my eyes. I kind of glossed it over, like, okay, I believe that's true. And I kind of maybe inside knew it wasn't, but it wasn't convenient to deal with it at that moment. So you just go on to the next thing that you think at the time is more important or more fun.
Yeah.
So
right.
when you have that assessment, and journaling helps, writing a lot and then going back and reading it and going, oh, that didn't age well. You know what I mean? So, but the point is though, but again, Rocco, you have to be wanting to self-reflect, and I'm not sure
uncomfortable.
We do a lot of that.
Well, I think if anybody takes anything away from anything we've said on the show this year, I think if they take away, just be willing to have the hard conversation with yourself. If you can do that, right, and really look at yourself first, exactly. If you can do that first, you can have a completely different year next year. Like and I've always been the person, I've always known, but this year was the first year, like I felt like from just a business, like a personal discussions I've had with myself, like I've dealt with the personal shit over the years. This was the first year in business. I'm like, I need to have this really hard discussion with myself. Cause like, if I have this lofty goal of where we want to go, this guy is not going to get there. The guy I got to turn myself into will, but I had to have that hard discussion with myself first to figure out the deficiencies and to make the changes I need to make.
It's just an adjustment. And it's funny when you start having those conversations, and I, from a career standpoint, you've been on a legal trajectory since you got out of school. And you knew before you were a lawyer that you wanted to be a lawyer. You pursued that goal. So our paths are different. I've had like a couple different lifetimes in my careers.
Yeah.
But when you sit back and you look at it, each of those changes were seismic, but they were done intentionally.
Yeah. Yes.
And
absolutely.
Where I'm disappointed with myself this past year, and on smaller items, is that I had moments that I could have been more intentional, which I know is a catchword today.
Yeah.
More intentional with projects and things, and I just did not hit the markers right, and you learn, right? But I'm not going to beat myself up over it. And I think that we as humans do that. We go into, if we do self-reflect, I don't want to self-reflect because I'm going to go into depression. We need to be stronger.
Yeah.
Use it as a tool.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of live by one of the Stoic sayings, be strict with yourself and tolerant with others.
100%.
And it's, and sometimes I'm too hard on myself. Like I know that, but
Marcus or
Marcus Aurelius, I believe. Okay. But sometimes I'm really hard on myself, but I know that's what drives me. Like I have to do that to myself. Like if I don't no one's going to be hard on me. Right.
Yeah.
Cause like in the firm, like I lead the firm. So no one's beating on me to say, do the shit you need to do.
Yeah.
I've got to beat on myself basically. And it's having that hard discussion and saying, dude, like look in the mirror. You fucked up this year. Like you did some shit you shouldn't have done. You didn't pay attention to things you should have done. There are some discussions you should have had that you didn't. You need to course correct. And I really need to have, that was a hard discussion. It took weeks for me to have that discussion with myself.
Yeah.
Like really assessing it. Like, what the fuck, man?
Well, when I was reviewing some of the notes and some of the emails we've gotten over the past year, and on this subject, a gentleman wrote to me. He says, you both talk about entrepreneurship a lot, and he said one of the comments he said was you stress being honest with yourself. What about self-examination for those of us who work as employees, and what we can do, and how can I get motivated as an employee when my income doesn't change, and I'm not there in that space and haven't been for a while, but my argument would be, if you want to be hard on yourself, look at your own personal individual performance and make that job you're doing fantastic through efficiency. If you become honed in and be exceptional at that particular job, I'm going to guess through the law of averages, things are going to work out in your favor and growth will happen for you.
Yes.
You don't have to be an entrepreneur at the moment. You can become one in some form or fashion just by self-development through your current job. Right.
But look at the employee, right? You can, I always say, as an employee, right, you're not going to get paid what you think you deserve. You're going to get paid for the value you bring. So if you want to affect change, bring more value. Like I will pay somebody $1 million a year if they give me $1 million in value. But until you do that, I'm going to pay you what I believe you're worth based upon the value I perceive you bring. If you show me you bring a higher value, I will pay you that value. And that's how every business owner looks at employees. Now I have amazing employees. I love my entire team. I want to pay them all $1 million. When we have the money too, I will be able to do it because I think they're all going to be worth it. Right now, none of us are worth that right now. So we all have to bring more value to the firm.
Certainly.
And that's to answer that question. Like just look at what you do.
Yeah.
And how do you bring more value to it?
Yeah.
Because eventually, like you said, it all works out.
Yeah,
and if it does in that company, you find a new company.
100%. As a young man, one of the top 3 or 4 statements that I heard Jim Rohn, I was introduced to Jim Rohn, and I heard him say was that you are not paid for the hour. You may be getting an hourly wage, but you're not paid for the hour. You are paid for the value you bring to the offer. And he said, the moment you get that in your head and you understand that and you start living that way, things will start to change.
Yeah, that's exactly.
It's very simple.
I did a video on that last week. I talked about like the value, like that, what I charge per hour. I said, you're not paying for the hour. You're paying for the 20 years I bring to the hour. That's why my hourly rate is higher than others, because I bring 20 years of detailed, complex experience to that hour, which something may take me an hour, may take the other guy 5 hours to do just because I know how to do it.
Well, your charity, before we go tonight, your charity is going to center around introducing and developing entrepreneurial spirit in young people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, my only verbal contribution to this is I will stand by the following statement, that the concept or the understanding or the definition of what actual value means is not taught in public schools, to my understanding. It's just not. And I think if a young person understands the concept of value as opposed to money, they're two different things.
They're two totally different things. Absolutely. And that's something we want to teach.
The concept of value is truly understood at times by the youth, the very young.
Yeah. I mean,
it's not taught.
No. And it's first of all, asking them the question, what would you pay someone your age to do this? Like what would you pay somebody? That's your value. How do you increase that value? Like asking the simple questions, right? Like you want to start a landscaping business or a lawn cutting business. What would you pay somebody to cut your yard? What would you pay somebody? Not what you think people should pay you. What would you pay someone?
Right.
That's the value you put on the service.
100%.
So then how can you increase that value? What else can you bring to the table that will make somebody pay you more?
An employee should feel, what additional value can I bring
Right.
to the work that I do? I think this was Rowan again, but it was brand as an employee, brand yourself.
Yes.
Doesn't mean you start putting your name on your shirts,
Right.
but brand your reputation that you do this level of work.
Right.
And make it, even if you're working with some rock stars, make it even a little step above the rock stars, make it stand out.
Yes.
And that reputation will carry you.
That's it. Like, be known for something. Be like, when I was in corporate America, I was known that I was always accessible, no matter what. 24/7. If I was on vacation, people could get a hold of me, and I would help them and solve the problem. So I was known as reliable and dependable. Like, people that people knew how to get a hold of me, and they got a hold of me. So that was my reputation. So people always relied on me. I was a sure thing, a sure bet. So bring something like that to the table, and you will get paid your value.
Sounds like dependability to me.
Yeah, really. I mean, something as simple as that. Like, just be dependable, be accessible, and be dependable to your clients.
And like you said many times, in this current environment right now, with the unfortunate lack of dependability, all else is going on in the workplace. It's not too difficult now to set yourself above the fray.
No, just do a little bit better than everybody else. I mean, especially in my profession, like, people fucking hate lawyers, and most lawyers don't communicate. They don't call people back. They take forever. So when I get back to someone within a day, they're like, holy shit, like, I'd have never thought I would have heard from you so soon. I'm like, well, yeah, of course I'm going to get back to you. It's just like that little bit of extra. And that's something we're looking at next year. The book Unreasonable Hospitality, I gave it to my entire team to read. It. We're going to take it up an even further notch next year. We're going to give clients such an experience that they will never forget us. And like, there's just little things we have to start doing better. And like, we already take pride in our client experience, but now it's like the next level shit. So it's those types of things we got to do.
You'll get there.
Be a fun year, man.
You'll get there. This has been a very fun year.
Yeah. It's almost over, man.
I can't believe it.
I know.
Friends, we will not be here next week.
We will not. Take a week off.
And we're going to open the year the following week, I think, is the 2nd. We may need to change that date this week based on some scheduling conflict on my end, but we will do that, and we'll post that and let you know. But I want to thank everybody who is a carryover, and there are quite a few from our radio show that have like adapted to this new format. I love this much better.
Yeah, it's way better
with you.
Yeah, it's definitely way better.
And thank
more
you
modern
for taking for taking this idea on.
This was fun, man. I love it.
All right,
keep it going.
Everybody have a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah to my Jewish friends, our Jewish friends. And we will see it. Be safe and be kind to everybody, right? Do what Rocco says. Kindness.
Just be kind and make 2024 your best year.
I'll do it.
Cool.
We're out.